right, you know, we've been having a lot of fun with Halloween today, but we're kind of missing the whole point, right? Halloween is supposed to be a little scary, a little spooky, make you think a little bit. So who better than to share some scary, spooky, maybe even ghost stories, legends with us than Historic Lewes. Today we have Dawson, we have Marcos on the CoastLife couch. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you both. Now, they are not dressed up for Halloween. This is the attire from what year are you guys dressed from?
1770s.
1770s?
And 1790s.
Okay, yeah, so these are not Halloween costumes. These are what they would be wearing back in the day. So they're just hanging out to 1700s folks with Glinda the Good Witch. So you never see that every day. But what you also don't hear every day are some ghost stories, some legends. Dawson and Marcos are going to share some with us today to get you in the Halloween spirit. So Dawson, which one are you telling us?
I'm going to tell you about the misfortune that befalls Gehrke Fisher.
Okay, and are these local stories?
Yeah, Gehrke Fisher was a Lewes resident. He actually lived in Lewes. And if you'd like, I can jump right in.
I think we should jump right in. So if you spook easily, maybe settle in, you know, get your stuffed animal or whatever you need to hold tight. But Dawson, yeah, tell us about this spooky story.
So Gehrke, he was a working man in Lewes. You know, he was a well-respected man, and not too much is known about him. But according to the newspaper reports, he loved his wife, Miss Fisher, dearly. He was a good worker. He showed in every day at work until he started to get sick. And Gehrke started to slow down, and he didn't know what was happening. So he went to the doctors, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. And Gehrke would go back to work, come home to Miss Fisher, and he started getting slower and slower until suddenly Gehrke didn't show up to work the next day.
That's never good.
So the police come around and they start to figure out, well, where did this Gehrke man go? And they find him dead. Well, what happened to Gehrke? We have to investigate. They asked the boss, did you kill Gehrke? He says, of course not. He's a great worker. They asked Miss Fisher, did you kill Gehrke?
No.
No, of course not. So he died of natural causes. We'll wrap it up to that.
Okay.
And as they're taking him away, one of the doctors notes the scent of almond on Gehrke. Very peculiar. Now they say we need to do another investigation because that scent, it implies something a little weird. They ask the boss, did you kill Gehrke? And he says, no, of course not. They ask Miss Fisher, did you kill Gehrke? Oh, yes! Oh, I killed him. She breaks wide open.
Wait, what?
Yes, she says, my dear Gehrke, I loved him so, and I just wanted him to need me, but when he went to work and he came home, he was so independent, so I put a little arsenic in his food. And he got a little sicker, and he needed me once more. I tucked him in, I read him a story, and then I ran out of arsenic. So I went to the store and I asked, well, I have a rat problem. Is there something you can do to help me with it?
No.
And they offer cyanide to Miss Fisher. Now, cyanide has that scent of almond, which is why they were able to detect the poisoning. She admits to the crime, and that night she had put cyanide in his asparagus soup. So the town of Lewes decides not to sell asparagus soup for quite some time or to eat it, and Miss Fisher promptly goes to jail. But she does get out on good behavior because of her time as the prison cook.
Well, is that real?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A true Lewes story for you.
Absolutely.
Whose idea was it to make her the prison cook?
Well, someone clearly that didn't read her file.
Oh, how long ago was this?
This was in the 1900s at some point.
Wow. Okay, look, respectfully, not that long ago. Sooner than you were born because you're from the 1700s.
Yeah, there's been murders from the 17, 18, 1900s, hopefully none in the 2000s in Lewes.
Oh my gosh, Miss Fisher. Well, I was thinking, I mean, first of all, she could have gotten away with it. I was thinking you were going to say she kept denying it.
No, she broke wide open.
And now we know on Halloween, especially, do not eat asparagus soup. Especially if it smells like almonds.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's a good murder story for you, but we have another legend, right, Marcos, coming up?
Absolutely.
Okay, so settle back in. We have another story for you guys. Marcos is going to tell us about it when we get back. You were watching CoastLife, and just a minute ago you saw or maybe heard a story from Historic Lewes. We have Dawson and Marcos still on the CoastLife couch. Dawson told us a true murder story that happened in Lewes in the 1900s. And if that wasn't enough for you, obviously Historic Lewes has more legends, more spooky things to tell us. Marcos, what are you telling us about today?
I'm going to tell you today the legend of the Sussex County Marsh Monster.
Oh, okay, so we want to go from a murderer to a monster today.
Absolutely.
All right, I think we should just jump right in. What do you know about this legend?
So this is a legend that is hundreds of years old, and it could have happened anywhere in Sussex. It is known as a marsh monster. Well, it could have been right here in Milton. It could have been Millsborough, could have been Millville.
Okay.
One thing this story agrees upon through the centuries is that there was a marsh, there was a monster, and there was a graveyard.
Okay.
So as the story goes, a group of friends were getting towards the end of the evening. Perhaps they were getting into a bit of mischief, as the young ghouls and goblins may do tonight. But they know that they have to get home, so the only option is to take a shortcut through the graveyard. And they're daring each other, they're rousing each other. Oh, I'm not afraid. Who's afraid? And suddenly they hear, of course, in the distance, and they're walking a little slower. And again, they notice as they go through the graveyard a pile of dirt and a freshly dug grave.
Okay.
And again, only louder. And they get near that grave, and they're saying to one, well, you go first. No, you go first. And they're getting there, and they're looking, and again, no! Now they're deathly afraid. They look, just peeking over into that grave, and there they see a sheep.
Oh my gosh.
It had been trying to jump out. The poor young white lamb had been jumping up and jumping down and bleating for help. So the friends work together. They free the creature. They head home to no other incident. But it is an important lesson to our young ghouls and goblins tonight, trick-or-treating. Things are not always that scary if you go together as friends.
Oh, that's the end of the story, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. I was hoping you weren't going to be like, and then the monster came out and ate the sheep. That's where I thought it was going.
No.
That makes me feel
a family
a lot better.
show.
Okay. Do you know where this legend started from, if it's true, about what year?
It is probably the earliest recording is probably about the turn of 1800s.
Oh, okay.
So, and there are some suspicions to those viewers out there as well, too. If you have a marsh and you have a cemetery, you can kind of figure out maybe where it came about, because when the flooding happens at some times, there are different routes and paths that the only option is to go through that cemetery.
Oh, good to know. I know we have a lot of wetlands here, of course.
Absolutely.
I think an even better, lesson for kids, though, is just don't walk where you're not supposed to tonight. But if you do, go together.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Is there? How can people, keep learning about legends and the history, the scary and the not so scary history of Lewes with the Historic Lewes?
Well, I think both Mr. Dawson and I wanted to share that. Please come to visit us. We are historiclewes.org for more information. But our Cannonball House, the Cannonball House Maritime Museum, is one of the buildings still in its original foundation. Was bombarded by the British during the War of 1812, April 6th and 7th of 1813. That cannonball is still lodged in that bottom part of the foundation, but as well, especially this time of year, and if you're not yet done with spooky horror and Halloween fun, do know as well that it is one of the best documented ghost stories within the Eastern Seaboard to a former resident. But to learn that story, you have to come and see us at the Cannonball House Maritime Museum.
I've been to the Cannonball House with both of you, and I've heard the ghost stories, and I believe them to be true.
Absolutely.
It feels a little spooky in there in a good way, not too bad, but I think that'd be a great place to go. Maybe for the older kids who don't want to go trick-or-treating.
Absolutely.
Head by Historic Lewes for your Halloween spookiness, okay? Awesome. Well, interesting, guys. Thank you for telling us these stories. And, you always share the good history of Lewes, but I think it's fun to kind of learn some of the more frightening tales. Awesome. You guys are great. All right, guys. We have coming up, though, not so scary, some games to play. That's going to be here in just a second.